What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for another episode of our Korean War group build and our Airfix 1/48 scale Seafire FR 47. Let's go ahead and jump right into the kit, guys. Get this party started. Last time I worked extensively there on the resin parts. I got those all cleaned up and installed into the sidewalls there on the fuselage. Unfortunately, I am missing a few parts for the cockpit, so we're going to go ahead and just see what we can do with what we have. Might have to mix and match a little bit of parts and figure out what to do here, but that's all good. That's half the fun. Let's go ahead and jump on in there. I want to start off with some primer. I'm going to grab some Mr. Surfacer 1200, go ahead and get the entire cockpit ready to go. Then I want to go ahead and start painting everything, and I'm probably going to go with some Tamiya flat black. Go ahead and get this cockpit looking primo. So let's go ahead and jump in here, guys. We got lots of work to do. Let's have some fun. Alright, everybody, so we are back, and I gotta tell you, so far so good. The resin might be really painful to get installed and just takes forever to get it dialed in, but honestly, the detail on this is pretty awesome, so you take the good with the bad for sure. Now, I've actually gone ahead and painted the entire cockpit a flat black, and that seems to be what most of my references are telling me to do. The instructions included here tells me just to paint everything flat black. To do that, I went ahead and used Tamiya flat black. I went ahead and airbrushed it in there, but you can't see any of the parts and pieces, and all the detail is pretty much lost. So what I've decided to do is come in with some light gray for some dry brushing. That should pop all the edges of all the consoles, all of the wires, all that lovely detail, getting it jumping out at you, and that's what I wanted to do. I also want to go ahead and take the opportunity to come in and do a little bit of detail painting, again, to bring in some color and make some things pop out at you. I'm going to go ahead and start with some flat red. We're going to pick out certain dials and different levers and switches and whatnot. I've got my references open as well, so that should give us a bit of an idea about what exactly should be painted red. I'm also going to come in with some silver and some white, and we're just going to go ahead and try to pick out certain switches and dials to give this thing a little bit more life. Because otherwise, like I mentioned, it's all flat black, and so it all just kind of melds into just one massive color. So I wanted to make sure to kind of pop that detail and get it looking really snazzy. So I think we're doing all right. There's a couple of switches here and there. I'm going to do both the right and the left side as well as the instrument panel. As you saw, I did paint those up as well, so I think we have opportunity to come in and pick out a couple switches on that PE part. Not too shabby. Same thing here with some silver paint. I'm going to use some Vallejo aluminum. Again, we're just going to go in and pick out certain dials and switches and maybe some lever handles just to give it a little bit of spice. Same thing goes for white. We're going to come in and pick up certain dials and switches. It should be the last color. And then I think we'll move on to the next stage here of the build. Now, this is actually something interesting. I was doing some reading online, and there seems to be a bit of discrepancy between the chair. The instructions here tell me to paint it flat black. And when I did a little bit of research, I found that, yeah, it might have been painted flat black, but typically the seats were a resin composite material. So that means that they would have been this kind of reddish brown. Now, because I have a cockpit that's mostly just flat black, I wanted to go ahead and pick out a couple of colors. So I'm going to go ahead and use my red brown and make the seat one of the resin unpainted seats. I think that's going to really kind of make that cockpit pop a little bit more. Then, of course, I'm going to come in with just a little bit of our Tamiya panel liner. I'm not even going to flat coat or top coat this at all. I'm just going to use it as is, and it should soak into the paint and give it a very interesting kind of mottled look. It's going to add a little bit of something very, very subtle. So now that everything is mostly painted, I want to jump back into that time lapse. We have a lot of work to do here, guys. So I'm going to start off with the cockpit. I'm going to try to get that finished up as much as possible. Then I want to go ahead and try to get everything installed. That's going to be really, really difficult, but I think we can do it. We have to be a little clever about that. Then I think just painting and scratch building some parts and pieces. I want to really get in there and see what else I can do, and maybe, fingers crossed, get everything buttoned up, maybe even install that cowling and see what other troubles I can get into. So let's get back into that time lapse, guys. Let's push on. Let's see how she turns out. Alright everybody, we are back, and as you can see, the fuselage of the Seafire is all nicely buttoned up. We've got our windows here and there on the sides of the fuselage and the undersurface. That actually turned out to be okay. We have our cockpit installed with our seat and our seatbelts and all that good stuff. Plus I tacked in the cowling as well, and I think, honestly, not too bad. Let's get you a close-up and you can see some of the detail. Of course, we have this massive gap here in the front by the cowling and the fuselage. I don't know why we have such a big gap, but I've actually been reading about quick boosts and sometimes they end up being a little short, and this one is actually short. Now we also have our cockpit nicely dialed in and everything is closed up and glued in. As you can see, that red-brown seat really pops out at you, but I did have to be a little clever with installing the rest of the missing parts. I had to pull out some from the kit and just make it work. I also went ahead and scratch built a little decking right in the back by where the camera ports would be. I don't know if we have any cameras in here or if that was standard procedure, but I thought you're going to see through those windows. I might as well add something there. So I think that's actually a really good move to make. In terms of that cockpit, I had to do a lot of resin editing. Basically, when I got everything in there, I had to shave down and cut off parts of the resin, but it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be. So nothing too fancy, but I think it really adds a little bit of life to that. Now I also worked a little bit here on the center section of the wings. I added in some wires and some little details there in the wheel wells. Now the neat thing is if you go ahead and install the fuselage onto the center section of wings, there's a beautiful, beautiful fit here with this. There's hardly any gaps whatsoever between the fuselage and the wings. So that is really, really nice because I figured with the addition of that resin in there, I would have completely screwed up the thickness and the spread there on that fuselage. But so far so good, I did not. So I'm very happy about that. And yeah, even with my custom scratch built parts and whatnot, it still fits like a glove. So I'm super happy. Can't wait to go ahead and glue this thing all together. I have a couple of extra parts though to put on, so I'm not going to get there just quite yet, but maybe next episode I can get that all tacked into place. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us today. We're going to move on next episode with more parts, more painting, more sanding, more filling, and we're going to hopefully get this thing looking like a Seafire and more or less together. I need to go ahead and check on the wing fold mechanism and whether or not we can actually deploy the wings down. I've heard that the fit on that is terrible. So that's going to be a little bit tricky, but we'll go ahead and tackle that next episode. Until then, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode 4 of our Korean War group build and our Airfix Seafire FR 47. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.